Welcome back, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this very special episode as we conclude our journey through Annu Pandey's insightful second book, Keeping Faith Alive. Over the course of the series, we've explored the many dimensions of spiritual abuse from understanding how it begins to its emotional and psychological effects, the journey of healing, and the rebuilding of identity and faith. Today, in chapter 16, Lighting the Way Ahead, we turn our attention to the future. Together, we'll discuss how awareness can prevent abuse, how survivors can become a source of hope and encouragement for others, and whether positive change is possible within faith communities. We'll also explore the vital role of compassionate leadership, healthy conflict resolution, and why resolution does not always mean reconciliation. As we close the series, our hope is that this conversation inspire greater understanding, healthier spiritual communities, and a renewed commitment to protecting the dignity and well-being of every individual. Thank you for joining us on this journey. Let's begin. How are you, Anu?
I'm great, Siddharth. How are you?
I'm awesome. And yeah, I can't believe we've covered so many chapters.
Reached the last chapter of the book.
Yeah, it's been awesome. All right, Anu. As we conclude Keeping Faith Alive, what do you hope readers will take away about recognizing spiritual abuse and creating greater awareness within their own families, faith communities, and society?
Okay, so my hope is that when someone leaves a toxic spiritual environment, usually people leave with a lot of fear because that's what toxic spiritual community teaches you, that this is the only path that will take you to the god, and if you are not on this path then you are lost, because also everybody else who's not on this path is lost. So if you leave this, no matter what is happening inside, if you leave this, you will lose faith. So first thing that I would like to say is that I hope that when someone leaves a spiritually harmful environment, they leave not with the fear of losing their faith, but with greater wisdom, discernment, and hope that things will get better. They will be more connected one day with themselves. They will have a better social life, better social support, and also they will have a better relationship with God. And it always, I say that it always starts with understanding that it was not God who did this to you, and God does not want you to suffer. In last podcast we discussed these things, that although suffering is inevitable, but it doesn't mean that God automatically wants you to keep sacrificing or keep suffering for your spiritual growth. Suffering, spirituality lets you deal with sufferings in a better way, but you don't always need to be suffering to grow spiritually. So, if you suffered in your community or in your spiritually abusive family, it's not that God wanted that to happen. It was people using their free will to make you feel like that because they might be gaining something, or they were just too naive to understand that that was the wrong thing that they did to you. So, when you leave, if when you are leaving, I hope that you leave with greater wisdom, discernment, and hope for a better life, and not fear of losing relationship with God or losing faith at all. A lot of people have this fear so much inside them that they sometimes act like atheist for a long time, and some stay atheist because they are so afraid of God. So the first hope that I have this is, now when we talk about creating greater awareness in society, in our spiritual community, and in family, first we have to understand how we can recognize abuse. If you're trying to understand if a given space is spiritually abusive or not, you have to understand in the terms of patterns, because spiritual abuse is rarely overt, rarely obvious. It's almost always subtle, it's coercive, it's hidden, it's not very obvious, and it always starts with manipulation, subtle manipulation instead of obvious control. And in spiritual communities, abuse is always disguised as holiness, obedience, or God's will. Yesterday, I was talking to someone on Facebook, and I wrote, they were talking about spiritual abuse. So I mentioned something that devote the followers who live in West, who where there are temperatures very low, sometimes below 0 degrees Celsius, very low temperatures. There is literally ice, snowfall everywhere, and those people in those Western countries who follow gods from India like Shiv or Krishna or Durga Devi or anyone, when they are doing their practices, when they are doing their preaching work, they usually wear Indian clothes. So I just mentioned, why make them wear Indian clothes? Because Indian clothes are meant for climates in India, not for the Western countries where there is so cold and there is snow everywhere. So someone immediately replied, trying to defend their community. Nobody is forcing them. They can wear what they want to. But I've been there, not directly, but I have observed how people are coerced into doing things they want them to do. So obviously nobody forces you in spiritual communities. There can be incidents where someone was physically harmed, sexually harmed, financially harmed, but most of the abuse that happens in spiritual spaces, religious spaces, is always subtle. They mess with your head. They put ideas in your subconscious that when you do things, you feel like you are doing this because of your own will. You are doing because you want to do them, but it's not true. That's what coercion is. That's what coercive control is. That's how coercion is different from forcing. When we are forcing someone, we are telling them to do things obviously, directly. But coercion is making you think that you are doing things because you want them to do, although it's not true. It's just somebody trying to have control over your subconscious by putting ideas there, because that this is the only safe way. If you want to stay safe, if you want to be accepted, if you want to be validated, you have to be this way. And these thoughts are purely in the subconscious, so you don't know. So spiritual abuse, it's always hidden, subtle, and it's always in the form of coercive control. So remember that in your mind when you're trying to recognize spiritual abuse. Now, healthy faith always protects human dignity. You always remember that. If you are in a spiritual space and you want to know if this spiritual space is healthy or unhealthy, this tip can come handy. Any toxic faith system, they would not value uh, human dignity that much. They would be trying to protect power, they would be trying to protect the image, but they wouldn't be trying to protect a lot human dignity. Genuine spirituality, it reflects compassion, truth, humility, and justice. This is very important. If you can clearly see that the system or the leaders are doing something which is not aligned with what I just said, compassion, honesty, truthfulness, and justice, if they are doing opposite of it, then this spiritual environment may not be very healthy. Psychological health and authentic spirituality, they reinforce each other, but toxic spiritual environments always work against what what would promote your psychological health. And if you try to talk to them about it, they would say that psychology is demonic, science is demonic, all this new age knowledge is demonic, and it's like psychologists have just discovered compassion and empathy, as if we don't know what's compassion and what's empathy. We know what's right for you. So they, people from toxic faith system, they think they know it all, they know what's best for you, and you should be doing what's best for you. And they think that that is compassion. That is not compassion. When you're taking away someone's autonomy, when you're not being mindful of how what you're telling them to do is affecting them, that's not compassion, that's not empathy. You must not take nobody's autonomy or their critical thinking or their agency. So when we if we try to break cycles, a lot of patterns have been just passed on from the generation to generation. People don't question in such spaces. So if we need to break the patterns, first the most important thing is awareness. Awareness is what starts to break the cycles. So when we talk about families, communities, and societies, families can learn to recognize unhealthy patterns early. If you see that in your family as a parent, you see unhealthy patterns are going on, you can stop them right there before they get transferred to the next generation. In fact, I would say that children are mirror. In fact, I have seen in my family, sometimes I see my eldest son who has spent most time with me and my husband as compared to my younger children. A lot of time I see that sometimes he adopts the behavioral patterns which are not very healthy in me and my husband, and that's very liberating, because now you have evidence in front of you that what you had been doing is not the right thing. When he does the same thing to me and I feel hurt, that's when I know that, oh, I have been following this pattern of behavior and it might be hurting other people. So we can use our children as our mirror. They often act as mirrors because they blindly follow, they don't consciously learn, they just reflect. So if you see any pattern in your children that you think they have adopted from you, whether it's related to spirituality, social life, general behavior, empathy, morality, anything, and you can stop it right there, it's a very good, instead of feeling ashamed and offended, it's a very good chance to acknowledge that. Say sorry to, I do that, I say sorry to my child. I tell him that I'm sorry, you, what you just did was wrong, but I am sorry because you have learned this from me and I just realized this because I have also been doing this, and maybe you have been observing me, so you didn't realize that it's a wrong thing, and now I want you to stop doing this, it's not right, and I will also work on myself. I have done this several times with my eldest son, and it really works. And it can be very useful tip to end your own dysfunctional behavioral patterns. When the moment you see them in your children, instead of shaming them and getting offended, take it as an opportunity to bring the changes. So recognize and in fact you can, whenever you see something in your child that's coming from your partner, you can talk to your partner about them. So in this way family members can help each other into breaking these unhealthy patterns. When talking about faith communities, please normalize healthy questioning, because everything starts there. A lot of times people would just shame or mock someone for having a question whose answers they don't know, because they too were mocked and humiliated when they had the same question. So what they're doing, the only answer to that question is mocking the person asking that question, so they are giving that answer to them. Stop that. If you don't know the answer, just say, I don't know the answer, let's try to find it out, or work together and try to find out a question. If somebody holds a mic in their hand and stands on the podium in the church or sits on a vyasasana in a temple, it's their responsibility to be able to handle the questions. I'm not saying that you should be able to answer all the questions, because you too are human. We have imperfect knowledge, imperfect senses. It's okay to not know all the answers, but never shame or guilt trip or mock a person and make everybody else laugh at them for having that question. If you don't know the answer, just say that I don't know the answer, and let's try to find out. So in healthy communities, the best way to break the patterns is to see if you can normalize the healthy questioning. Somebody is curious, let them be. Let them be, because curiosity will increase the knowledge not only in them but also in you and everybody else. When you try to find the answer, you will also get to know the other aspect, the aspect that this person was thinking about. So it will increase the intelligence and the knowledge in everyone. So it's a good thing. As a society, we should learn to hold leaders accountable. A lot of time you would see, especially in India, when something comes about a leader from a spiritual community, the people who belong to their faith community, they would try to silence everyone, and it becomes, oh, my community, they would try to just blindly support them just because they belong to your community. We should not think like that. We should think critically, we should think logically, and if there are clear evidences in front of you that so and so leader has been wrong, hold them accountable. That's how we can bring changes as society. Discernment is an act of faith. A lot of people think that discernment is something opposite of spirituality. It will strengthen your faith, not weaken it. In toxic faith system, they are told to, they would tell you to not use your brain. Discernment will weaken your faith, it will destroy your spiritual life. It's not true. God gave you brain so that you can use it. He gave you wisdom so that you can use it to make things better for you. Healthy skepticism is compatible with genuine belief. But toxic faith system would make you think it's the opposite. It's not true. Being able to think, understand, analyze, and take the decisions which are best for you, they would always improve any area of your life, not just spirituality. Then why exclude spirituality from that? So, awareness is not the end of faith. Toxic spiritual communities will teach you that if you become aware of something which is opposite of what we are telling you, then it will end your faith. It's not true. If you have clear evidence in front of you and you become aware of that, it's often the beginning of healthier faith. You will be able to leave that, or maybe not all of that, but at least that part which was harming you, and you can take pick that part which was helpful in your spiritual growth, and you can create a spiritual life for your own that is aligned with your values and your ethics and your moral values. And that will be the beginning of healthier spirituality.
Awesome. All right, there's a comment here. All right, this is from Rishton. Dear Anu, the optional way forward is self-confidence and meditation. One should believe in themselves and their abilities, knowing that all humans are of equality. Trust comes from within.
Yes, self confidence and meditation. Yeah, believe in yourself. The toxic environments, whether spiritual or non-spiritual, would always want you to doubt yourself. They would try to confuse you, because the confused person who does not believe in themselves, who's not connected with themselves, they are easy to manipulate. So you, if you want to stop being manipulated by other people, the first thing is to learn to believe in yourself. You may not be always right, but whatever you believe in yourself, it will be always be in your favor. And meditation is one of the methods. There can be other methods also. So any method that does not triggers your memories of the spiritual, the religious trauma that you have endured previously, they could be, they would be good. You can carry them forward with you. Anything, any ritual that makes you feel connected to God would be helpful.
How can survivors transform their own experience into opportunities to empower and support others without feeling responsible for saving everyone?
So, when someone starts to heal, they can light up the way for others, because they know what it's like to be there. They know how the, what's the journey of that transformation from being broken, from being hurt, harmed, to heal. How is the healing journey like. So they have got all the experiences, they can share those experiences with other people, and it would facilitate their growth. The way they were lonely in their times, other people will not be. So when you have someone who supports you, who knows exactly what you're going through, it can be very easy for you. So if you've done it all alone, it would be very fulfilling when you be there for someone else who's also going through the same journey, but you are supporting them. It can be very fulfilling. But we have to remember that before we start to help others on the healing journey, it's advised and it's good that we heal first completely, because unhealed wounds may lead to over identification. When you're still grieving, when you're still traumatized, when you still are carrying the cognitive dissonance from the ideas, the previous ideas overlapping with the new ideas, conflicting ideas, sometimes you might over identify, and you might actually cause harm instead of helping. So it's advised to first heal yourself and then start helping other people. So when you are healed to some level and you are recovered from your own wounds, then it can help you create sustainable compassion. You will not burn out trying to help other. When you are yourself struggling, when you yourself lack resources to deal with your personal life, and you start to help other people also. Let's say I'm already carrying 20 kg on my head, and somebody is carrying 5 kg, and I said, oh, I'll help you and take their 5 kg on my head, or 50 kg on my head. I'll be crushed down with that weight. So similarly, try to understand using this. I'm trying to explain using this metaphor. If you are already carrying all of your burdens, they are still there, and none of that has healed. It's better to not start helping people. First, deal with your own ones. And when you start to help people, remember that you are there to empower, not rescue. Do not try to help someone who does not wants to be helped, who is clearly delusional or clearly not aware or does not want to be helped. If you try and push them to help, if you try to take away their autonomy, it's not the right thing to do, because that is what abuse is actually. So you too will be the psychological and emotional effect that will be there on this person will be same as abuse, because you two are doing the same thing. You're trying to take away their autonomy. So if you really want to help someone, help them develop their own discernment. Help them develop their own discernment, and then they will use their discernment to decide what to do with that given situation. Instead of giving them solution, give them wisdom. Help them develop their own wisdom, and then they will use their wisdom to decide what they have to do, like Krishna did to Arjun. He didn't tell him what to do. He gave him all the available knowledge and wisdom, and then he told him, now do what you feel like doing. So avoid creating any kind of dependency. It will not be good either for you or for the other person. While trying to help someone recover from their journey of spiritual abuse, religious trauma, make sure that you maintain healthy boundaries. You take care of your boundaries. Do not let people step over your boundaries just because they are sad or traumatized and they don't understand what they're doing. Also, do not overstep on other people's boundaries. So compassion, I know you might feel a lot of compassion for people who've going through what you've been through, but that does not mean that you sacrifice yourself or abandon yourself while trying to help you, because that's not a strategy that's going to work for long. As I gave an metaphor to explain, that strategy will burn you down, and you will not be able to stay in that mode of a helping person, say, for a very long time. So boundaries will preserve long term service, and that's what we want. We want to be continue to serve and to help people for long time, and it's possible only when there are healthy boundaries in the place. Also, practice humility. We can plant the seeds, but do not force anyone to take any action. Each person's journey remains their own responsibility. You can tell them, if they ask you why you left or why you are this way, you can tell them what happened to you, and but you do not need to force them to take the same actions as you did, or to stop talking to people who harmed you or who you think they are harming them. Do not make them take any decisions. Give them just the information, and also only the information that they require from you, and let them decide what they have to do with that information. So it's their journey, and it's their right to choose how they have to walk on that. Remember this psychological principle that empathy should be differentiated from over responsibility. I know you are feeling a lot of empathy, but do not feel over responsible for any person. You cannot rescue everyone, and if you try to, you will be exhausted. And try to avoid compassion fatigue and savior complex by maintaining these boundaries that I have listed. So try to be a guide. Do not try to walk with someone in their entire journey. It will not be feasible for you, and it's not recommended.
Awesome. Okay. Some people choose to leave abusive spiritual environments while others stay in the hope of bringing about positive change. What factors should someone carefully consider before deciding to remain and seek reform from within?
Okay, so there is no universally right or wrong decision. Wisdom lies in discerning which step is better for me, which path will protect both the truth as well as the well-being. So there are a lot of factors that need to be assessed before making an informed decision, and everyone should do that carefully. So first of all, the most important thing is assess your personal safety. Try to understand, if you stay or if you leave in both these spaces, what would be the level of your emotional safety, your physical safety, and your spiritual safety? Try to give, you can even give marks from 10 to 5. You can rate them, both of them, create a table and rate them. And then take an informed decisions. Which place feels safer to you holistically, emotionally, physically, as well as for your spiritual life. Then evaluate the leadership. Try to understand. If you think you would feel safer staying, then try to understand the leadership structure over there, the quality of leadership. If there is openness to correction, if you think there are some feedbacks that you need to give, there are some corrections that need to be, see if they are open to that. If you try to talk to them, would they listen? Would they try to make any changes or not? Is accountability welcomed? If the leaders are okay taking accountability, sometimes even leaders want to take accountability, but their community as a group would shut them down and tell them not to do so because it would bring bad name to the community. So see how, if the leaders uh, welcome accountability, if the group welcomes accountability by leaders, if they support that positively, and if feedback is punished. In toxic groups, you have to blindly obey everything. You have just to go with the flow. You cannot question, you cannot give a feedback. If you try to give a feedback, you will be punished. Punishment isn't always very obvious. Sometimes you're just humiliated for trying to bring a correction in such a pious and holy group and system. And Sometimes you are emotionally abandoned by people you love inside the community. So punishment could be of any type. See if you try to give punishment, will you be punished? So try to understand the leadership thing, how it is working there. So these are the red flags. If feedbacks would be punished, if leaders don't take accountability, if there is no openness to correction, then it's not a favorable place for you to be if the leaders are like that. Also, recognize the systemic dynamics. Sometimes a community feels toxic because there are few toxic individuals or one or two toxic leaders. If the thing is like that, they, you can just have boundaries with these people and you can stay. You need to be resilient, but you can stay. But when the problem is within the system, it's entrenched in the system. Like, is abuse individual or institutional? If the philosophy is causing the abuse, if the belief, the core beliefs of the philosophy, the community, the group are the reason why abuse is happening, then the problem is systemic. It's not related to a leader or a person. They are not doing this intentionally, they are doing this because they are a part of that group. Are harmful patterns deeply entrenched in the system itself, then you may not be able to bring any reformation, because that's how the group is. If you don't agree with this, then the only option is to leave. And also count the personal cost also. If I stay or if I leave, how is it going to affect my mental health, my family well-being, and also my faith development? So every aspect needs to be evaluated, and if possible in numbers, to understand it thoroughly. So sometimes protecting your faith can mean changing your location and not abandoning your belief. As I always say, your relationship with God is not enslaved to a church, to a temple, to a congregation, to a group, to a place. It's a personal, it's personal and unique to you. So sometimes leaving a place can actually improve your relationship with God.
Awesome. What practical steps can spiritual leaders and faith communities take to build culture of transparency, accountability, and emotional safety that help prevent spiritual abuse?
So every faith community has the capacity to become safer when they value humility over power. But in most of the structure, they always try to protect the power. I always say any spiritual community who actually cares about the spiritual well-being of their members, they would be more concerned about the vulnerables, anyone who is suffering, anyone who is committed to the community and trying to grow spiritually but have been harmed in some way. They would be more concerned about the vulnerables, and they will try to protect the vulnerables and not the power structure. However, in toxic communities, they would be more concerned about protecting the power. So that's the biggest red flag also. So but if a community decides that we will be more concerned about the humility and not the power structure, then they can develop an environment which is safer than what it was. So, a few things that they can do is the leadership can be shared. Instead of having a top down hierarchy, they can have different leaders, and it will avoid the concentration of the power and authority, and it will also encourage multiple voices. And might not always be aligned with each other, when sometimes there will be conflict in the beliefs. So it will be actually a good idea to have multiple people who have got multiple uh, beliefs and values. So people will also have choice which of these leaders they want to choose for mentorship. When there is only one person holding all the power, concentrated power, then whatever this person's consciousness is, intelligence is, belief, everybody has to follow this. There is no other choice. So it's good to have a large number of leaders, which will cause the avoidance of concentration of power. Then there should be transparent accountability, which we already mentioned. They can even have independent oversight, which is becoming popular these days with a lot of spiritual communities. They are hiring people from outside to have oversight over different issues like child abuse, domestic abuse, abuse on the basis of gender and race and all that. So it's good to have someone who will not have the conflict of interest. Also, clear complaint procedure should exist. If somebody has a problem, there should be a safe way to lodge a complaint. Because if if there is no such procedure, they would try to come up openly, and the person against whom they are trying to make that complaint, it might reach to them, and it can create chaos and division instead of getting to a clear resolution to the problem. So it's good to have a clear complaint procedure and fair investigation. Please ensure fair investigation of any sort of complaint that was lodged. It's not a shame that somebody is making complaints inside your community. It's like thinking, oh, having a police or enforcement in our country, that means that we should be ashamed of yourself. Everybody is proud that we have army that protects us from the outside, and we have law enforcement that protects us from the inside. Nobody feels ashamed of that. But why do we feel ashamed of it when we are talking in spiritual communities? If we have a body that protects us on the inside, does investigations, hold people accountable, why is it all of a sudden something to be ashamed of? It's for protection. If something is protecting you, it's not bringing bad name. Why you always think about protecting the image? Think about protecting the people who are so committed to the community. Yeah, I thought about comparing it to police. We are very happy, we respect police department because they help us on the inside, they protect us. Why can't we have same thing inside the spiritual communities? Why no questioning, no complaining, just obeying and closing your eyes and following everything? That is the problem. That's why all these things happens. Today something happened just before sitting in this podcast. Something happened on the Facebook. There is this woman who's feeling very distressed. She just went through an operation, and she needs help with food, with chores, and her husband is not helping her, and they are very old. I'm not blaming her husband. I don't know why he's doing that. Maybe he has some health issues, some mental health issues. I am not aware of that. But she's crying. She's doing this for the first time. She just created 2 3 posts on Facebook. She posted videos that my husband is doing this to me, he's not helping me, he's not giving me food and water, and I'm crying and sitting there. And she seemed to having stroke also on her face, and I got so worried looking at her. A lot of people are worried, but then from the same community, spiritual community that she belongs to, a lot of people are shaming her, guilt tripping her, bashing her, saying her bad words just because she's saying it openly that her husband is not helping her. And she has been serving that community for so many decades, and serving her husband from so many decades. I'm not saying that you all just go and believe her story and start to hate her husband, but right now she needs food, she needs medical care, and she needs to be taken care of. So if somebody can do that, please go ahead. If she's creating videos like that, it's obviously that she's very distressed and she's feeling helpful. Because first we try to contact people who are close to us, family members, relatives, but she's openly coming to Facebook and she's bashing the community because something is happening there. She is going through something. So we should not be sensitive to people like that. If somebody is opening up to something, try to listen to that person first. Try to understand what's happening instead of shutting her down. So this is the classic response of spiritual communities. You must not talk about anything bad happening to you. You must just do your rituals and keep quiet. That is what is told to people. It's good if when we are talking about small things like, oh, it's very hot or weather is not good, but if you are clearly going through something very serious which could be dangerous for you, you should be allowed to talk. She's just talking and everybody
Mm.
started to hate her. So these things happen. You investigation, people should be allowed to talk about what they are going through. There should be investigations, there should be a procedure to, if there was a clear procedure, she should have gone through that, but she was there, definitely there was none. And even while doing taking this path, she is still facing only humiliation, and it is only adding to her distress. And again, I'm saying I'm not against her husband. I don't know what's actually happening there, but she is clearly visibly distressed, and people should be listening to her. What's the meaning of community if you do not have compassion and empathy for people who belong to your community? Just because they spoke, just because they said that I'm suffering, the moment someone says I am suffering, suddenly they become a bad person. Why aren't you tolerating? Why aren't you doing the rituals so that you can tolerate them well? Also, the next point I would say is, the next thing that communities can do is have trauma informed leadership. Having being trauma informed means understanding what trauma does to someone's thinking, their emotions, their feeling, and their behavior. Trauma can alter a person, and trauma is non-binary. We all have it to some level. Some of us have got it on very high level, and that's why it has highly impacted them, the way they think, they feel, they see, and they understand things. So when someone is trauma informed, they are able to see if a person has trauma and why they are behaving in a certain way, instead of blindly judging them for behaving in a way that's not socially acceptable, which is not socially norm. They would be able to empathize with their person, knowing that, oh, this person is behaving like this because they might have trauma, because they understand how trauma works on someone's psychology. So there are a lot of courses available online. Some of them are free, some of them are very very cheap. Leaders can easily do this trauma informed leadership, trauma informed counseling courses, and can become trauma informed, which will help them understand trauma responses, avoid shame based teaching, which is very popular. Very popular. Most of the spiritual teachings in these times are shame based, because if you want someone to understand something or to do something, the easiest way is to make them feel ashamed. That's the easiest way. Shame works very fast. But try to understand that it has made your work easier, but it is harming them. When someone is carrying unnecessary shame, it messes up with their mental health, with their emotional health. And when someone, you're deliberately doing something that will decline someone's mental health, you are not helping them, and they are not growing spiritually. So a trauma informed leader will not use the shame based teaching. They would find another healthier ways, and they will also promote psychological safety, because they know what psychological safety means. Whenever we use the word safety, people usually assume we're talking about physical safety, and they would mock you. What's emotional safety? What's physical safety? You are so sensitive and all that. Yeah, when we use these words, people say, oh, it's like being too sensitive, and what's this safety? Safety means you should only be physically safe. But trauma informed person understand what does psychological safety means. Also, in order to make your community healthier, encourage respectful questions. It's very important to promote any kind of honest dialogues, constructive disagreement, and intellectual humility. Do not suppress critical thinking. Let them ask questions. It will be good for everyone. When the questions will be asked, answers will be given. People will get to know different perspectives, different ideas, different thoughts, and it will actually help them become a better leaders also in the future. When somebody would ask them, new questions, they will be able to answer them also. So it's good on. And the last thing that I would say is model servant leadership. Although a lot of communities do have servant leadership, but it's only for the name. But leaders, as I always say, religious spaces are breeding ground for narcissistic people, and narcissistic people usually enter these spaces only because they want to lead, because they love what leadership provides them, grants them entitlement, power, control. They love these things. So when they become leaders, they never act like servant leaders. In every spiritual community, every leader should act like a servant leader. A servant leader is someone who is given power which they can use to serve. Sometimes you need power to serve beautifully, but toxic leaders would always use that power for their own gratification, not to serve. And if you want your community to be healthier, make sure that leaders understand that the power that has been given to them is given so that they can serve. And the humility should always be kept over status. Status should not be important. On the other hand, toxic leaders always value their status and not humility. And accountability should be valued more than control. Wanting to control, wanting to make people serve me should not be the agenda of the leaders. They should think, how can I serve in the best possible way so that these people can grow spiritually in the best possible way. I will always value their humility over my status. I will hold myself accountable when I do something wrong. And yeah, I will hold myself accountable over exerting any type of control over these people. So healthy leadership earns trust through transparency, not unquestioned obedience. And the sad thing is that a lot of spiritual leaders, they are not transparent, they are not compassionate, they don't value humility over status, they don't use power to serve, accountability over control, but still they are being loved a lot. Because toxic spiritual system teaches you, no matter how your leader is, they are always right, they are the messenger of God, they are directly connected to God, and you must always obey them and give them unquestioned obedience, which is wrong. And that's why so many communities, but not a lot of people are growing spiritually.
Awesome. Your chapter discusses healthy conflict resolution and the idea that resolution is not always reconciliation. Why is this distinction so important for survivors of spiritual abuse and those supporting them?
So healing doesn't always require reunion. A lot of people think that forgiveness means you should reconcile. Healing means now you should be ready for the reunion. See, resolution between two people, it means that there is internal healing. If I've resolved an issue with someone, I will internally heal. I will be emotionally free. I will not be carrying them or what they did inside my head all the time, because that's not good for me. And I have to accept the reality. So, this is what resolution actually means. And reconciliation, on the other hand, if uh, someone has done me wrong and they want me to reconcile with them, they need to genuinely repent for what they have done. They need to take accountability. Then, most important thing, they have to show consistent behavior change that proves that they will not be doing again the same thing, and they have to make efforts, earn and restore the trust over time. If someone does that, and even after that, it's I who will choose whether I want to reconcile or not. But these are the things that they have to do first. Forgiveness is different from reconciliation. Forgiveness releases bitterness. If I have forgiven someone, it means I have released the bitterness for them. I don't carry inside my head. Reconciliation rebuilds relationship only when safety exists. And even forgiveness, I would say, people in such spaces usually force forgiveness just because you're spiritual, so you should forgive everyone. You should forgive anyone who has hurt you. It should not be like that. You forgive when you're ready. And even when you forgive, do not forget what they have done, because they might do that again, or anybody, other people might do that to you if you forget what happened to you. So forgive, but do not forget. Resolve, but do not reconcile unless you are ready. And when you are ready, check if these four things have happened or not. If they have actually changed their behavior, if they have genuinely repented, if they have honestly taken the accountability, and if they have been able to restore trust over time from their side, then it means that it's okay for you to reconcile. Otherwise, don't do that. So psychological importance is there. The psychological importance of resolution is that it prevents re-traumatization. If I do not resolve and I carry on the anger all the time, and I'm always talking about what they did to me, I will not be able to focus on my own health, on my own healing, things that I want to achieve, even if they are not in the scene anymore. And I'm thinking, I'm keeping them in the scene, and they will stay there and they will keep re traumatizing me. And so, when we reconcile, it prevents re traumatization, it reduces guilt also, and it encourages healthy boundaries. So, healing is measured by your freedom, not by the restoration of every relationship. A lot of times, especially in spiritual environments, and especially when it's husband wife relationship, if let's say a woman is going through domestic abuse, or if your parents have harmed you, you would be forced to forgive them, you would be forced to reconcile them, and you would be told that it's for your own good. It's not. It's not. uh, in one of the responses I said that psychological wisdom and spiritual wisdom, they can coexist, and they actually are aligned with each other. In toxic phase system, you would made to feel that spiritual wisdom is different than psychological wisdom. It's not. If you still feel hurt, if they have not taken accountability, if they haven't changed, shown the changed behavior, if they haven't repent, you can choose to not forgive. You can wait until you feel safe enough to forgive. Sometimes when we do the premature forgiveness, it feels like self betrayal. We need to show self compassion. We need to show compassion to ourselves, our hurt selves, more than to someone who has hurt us, if we really want to heal.
Lastly, looking to the future, what gives you hope that faith communities can become healthier, safer, and more compassionate places? And what role can each of us play in helping light the way ahead?
So, during the course of history, we had been observing that a lot of courageous people who are committed to truth and compassion, they have uh, brought a lot of revolution and renewals in the systems. So, the roles the hope that I have, it's because there is growing awareness these days. There are a lot of people who are creating awareness on these issues. There are great authors, content creators, even preachers who practice healthy spirituality and do healthy preaching. They are creating a lot of awareness on these things. In fact, all kinds of communities, they have some of the leaders who are very healthy and who are compassionate to their community and the members, and they are doing a lot of things. They are sometimes including in their own lectures and their writings, and some are exclusively creating awareness on different platforms. So there are now more conversations about trauma than before. People now know there is something like trauma, there is something like mental health, there is better psychological education than before. Before, people didn't know if there was something called as human psychology. They just saw and understood spirituality. Even old people, even less educated people, now they understand something is there that can improve things. And there is also increased theological reflection on abuse. In earlier time, everything was accepted as well. Even now, all kind of spiritual communities, mine also, they are working on these things. They're trying to do something. Not everyone is aligned with them, but there are definitely people in every community who are trying to make these spaces better. They are putting their own efforts. So no, so now the awareness is there, and there is also emerging healthy leadership. Not all of them, not the toxic narcissistic, definitely they will never change, but the people who were doing things unconsciously because they were part of the toxic system, or they were just carrying generational patterns, they are not trying to become better leaders. Some are writing books so that others can read and become better leaders also. There are trauma informed clergy members in different faith communities. There are accountable ministries, and there are collaborative leadership models. So the next generation that would be coming after this one, I know they would be valuing authenticity more than we did. They would seek integrity over image. I hope that they would. And they would welcome healthy dialogues. A lot of new spiritual communities, new groups are budding right now. At some point, they will become full fledged. And now I know and I hope that they would be providing better and more positive spaces for people to grow spiritually. And if we talk about the individual roles, we can practice discernment. We can speak truth with compassion. Speak truth while having compassion. Support survivors. That's very important. As I cited this incident that just happened before this podcast. People are afraid to support her just because she's speaking up. And if you speak up, you are wrong. She served decades in the community, and she's not allowed to speak up against anything that is harming her, that she's because she's feeling hurt. So please support survivors if you want to bring changes. Just by shutting them down, making them feel and tolerate everything is silence is not going to do anything better to your community. And hold leaders accountable. Do not be ashamed. It will not bring bad name to the community. Stupid people might think that the community's name has been ruined, but actually it is actually going to make things better. It's like taking a painful injection. It's going to cause pain for some time, but it's for my own good. And model humility and grace in your community. So, putting faith and psychology together, because both affirm human dignity and both encourage healing, wisdom, and compassionate relationship. So, the future of healthy faith is not built by perfect people, but by courageous people who choose truth, humility, accountability, and love every day.
Mhm. Oh, take care.
Okay.